This is called Miracles. I spent a lot of time in South London, where charismatic Black Christianity expresses itself often in the street before you. And it has an epigraph from Antonia Portia, which is, "Not believing has a sickness, which is believing a little." Miracles. There are folk round here talking miracles. You see them on the corner, eyes up at the streetlights, and you hear them streets away as they rant their prophecy, arms at speed and hands free dangling. What gets me is their certainty, really. I'm after telling them to shut it, but only because the surety of someone pronouncing God on the pavement is taken away from madness for me because of how much they mean it. I'm the kid in the camp under Sinai, 3 thou back, and asking me, ma'am, if the fellow with the foreign wife who did the plagues and then the sea and brought us to this place is legit, or whether one morning we're packing up and away back to Goshen. They all look mental, prophets. That's the trick, I suppose. I can think of few things harder than being the one in those clothes. That poem, of course, mentions my mother. Well, I mean, not really mentions the mother of the person. And as Jill said earlier, when you write something about one parent, you then have to write something about the other, or at least you have to mention the other. My dad is a vicar. I am a post-Christian, one of those difficult former believers. This is called Blood. Listening to Scandinavian folk music played on the same instruments that they'd have been a millennium back, I catch myself trying to hear whether a drum skin splashed in the blood of the player sounds different to one that isn't. I must stop reading interviews with musicians, as this is not the first time this kind of sneak thievery's occurred, and I've tried to slip my hand under a sound, lift it softly and find something more. Much of this has got to be down to my father, as not only do I share his blood, but his calling and pay have been dependent on effective transubstantiation, so far as such a thing exists, for longer than I've been alive. That being said, all I've got on Dad is from the once that I summoned the calm to ask him if he believed in all of that holy and shit, about it literally becoming blood, and all he gave was, "What I would say is that after you've spoken the words, the thing being offered is not what it was." In the arena of the unhelpfully wise, or at least those so by intention, my father has long reigned supreme, and this answer that, as I recall, I took so poorly it broke my calm as a drop will a bowl, sums up their inclination well, to offer something to transform you into blind rage, but the something later is not what it was, and somehow you have more. The substance of value, as it is on the altar, is to do with what you find you've received. Remember that Balder, the god of beauty, was brought after all from a bowl of spit, but I doubt people brought it up either with him and that damn face, or when taking in for the first time that most beautiful person who's just walked in. Mind, the given and taken sometimes spend themselves in the exchange. I remember the spatter of nosebleed dripped onto her bare chest as we turned together after 2 days spent on nothing but cheap white, rollies, and lemon-cup Coke, the engine room of the poetry world. It was different from the careful, brush-like smearing and striping of my chest with your blood as I held one of your hands and you held the rest of me. For all that we gave and took from each other, you're still left wanting more, as I am now, leaning my ear, trying to pick out the sound of dried blood. I was interested that there was a poem earlier which mentioned madmen. I mean, there's a poem in my book that mentions madmen, but it's I think it's a little too long, and also I get a bit emotional reading it. So I'm just going to read 2 more. This is called After the Iron Age, and it's one of those awkward chatting to people that you've slept with once stories. After the Iron Age. With that way that private school kids have, though, he managed to get himself into the mindscape of the wronged party, by way of my calm, and particularly fixed on the fact that I hadn't replied to the pictures he'd sent me after with any of my own. With the dark coming on and my second beer done with, I saw an out in telling the truth. I wasn't going to keep yours, so why'd I have sent you mine? This really pissed the Harrovian off, as the idea that I could get rid of him seemed to be worse than anything he could have done to me. And after a minute of his kind of shouting, I saw that he really expected an apology. Of all the things in the world, I thought of the tip on the estate, with its single knackered scratching post soaked at the top of the pile. People tear up at high chairs and pushchairs on that heap. Not me. The kid has surely outgrown them, and when we buy the things so cheap, this is where they belong. A cat, though, never stops needing a scratch, so when you see the post thrown out, it's a fair bet the creature's dead. I tried in my anger to tell him this. I never keep pictures she sends me, because we are past that. But I didn't keep his because I knew that we were dead. I knew it that morning, I wish I'd told him, when you fiddled with your wallet as I pulled on my clothes. Were we on the level, I'd have walked him to the tip, but he was in a cab by then, and I was glad he'd got it. I'm going to finish with the oldest poem in this. This is 9 years old. I've been working on it since then, which is ridiculous given that it was written by someone else, sort of. It's a version of an Arthur Rimbaud poem. And I suppose just for, I do want to say thank you so much to Aaron, but also to Kit Ingram, who explained to me quite how I use the word that in poems. I'd never realized that before. So this is the Shipwright's Arms at 5 p.m, which is after Arthur Rimbaud's At the Green Inn, 5 in the evening. An hour of track, then mud and stream burst. Caked up and flaking, I got down to Helford and shouldered the door of the Shipwright's Arms, tripped into the bar, ordered pint and short. Shuffling around on the bar stool, I adjusted my eyes and dropped my ears into the swampy band. Thanks, this is a shanty we've not tried before. We don't know if it works. The barmaid winces for me, her top telling me the volume that she prefers, and its cut swoops to murmur where that noise might lead. She suggests a go, brushing my finger, and I touch for a second, but know this to be a threshold that I'm too tired to ease us over. We both move on. I take half the pint in one, feel spring pour inside me. Thank you.